to. I did not videotape any of that, just didn't have time for it with everything else going on. Just glad to have it back in. I think I mentioned in earlier videos I wanted to get rid of the MSD computer that I had on that. So I went with the Terminator X. Here's a wire harness for the Terminator X. That's the computer there. So that's the main wire harness. And then this is for the injectors here. I think the best thing to do is I'm going to just kind of throw this on the car, kind of get it into place, because I need to figure out where I'm going to put the computer. So you have this main cable here, okay, and this goes to each side here, and then there's also a power cable here. It's totally separate, that goes to the computer. So I'm trying to figure out where to put the computer. Most people put them inside, they put them under the dash or under the seat. I'm going to put my computer under the hood. I did talk to Holley, and it's okay to do. Try to keep it away from heat and try to keep it dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this main trunk cable, I'm going to run it up behind the fender here, so it'll go something like that, okay, and I'm going to mount the computer up here on the fender well. So on this main cable you have a relay, there's a fuse. I'm going to have to extend these to get them to some place accessible so it's not just up under the fender. If I was going to run this inside under the seat, I still got to do something with these. After a lot of trial and error, I have the whole harness in here, the fuel injection harness and the main harness. So I found a way to tuck it in pretty good down in under here on this side. It runs around the back, and then the same thing on this side. It's all tucked down in here on this side of the fuel rail, and then the main harness comes up through the back, and that's what this big thing is here. I tucked it up in under the fender, and there are the main connections to the computer. The computer's here, so I'm going to be mounting the computer back in under here, kind of behind the battery, with the electrical connections pointing down. And then I'm going to use this area here for kind of the junction point. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that, but one thing I do know is I'm going to have to extend a few of the wires. What I modified was to bring the fan wires forward and added an extension on them, and then brought these two forward so I can hook them direct to the battery. Then these two, this relay and this fuse, were actually right back here. So I extended them and brought them here so I can mount them to the firewall as the plan. And then the handheld, the plug-in for the handheld was, let's see, that's where those were. It was here, so I extended it so that I could get it into the car. Remember, all this is going to be under the fender, and I would have no access to any of that stuff. I removed the knock sensors. I just cut them off. I don't run knock sensors on this motor, and then there's no modifications on the other side of stuff. So now, let's see if it's going to fit into the car. All the wire extensions and stuff, mesh wire cover, I bought some of that stuff and put all the wires in there so it'd be protected and it'd be nice and neat. This is the stuff I bought. It's just off Amazon. Alex Tech. You can see the website there. Have the harness laid in there. Nothing's really clipped in yet because it's going to have to come back out for final fitting, but it looks like it all fits in pretty good. That's the whole mess of stuff that's coming up from underneath the fender, and then that's the main connections for the computer, and the fans and such are coming there. And then coming down this side of the motor, this is all the temperature sensor, cam position sensor, throttle position sensor, all that runs down that side. Two things, that's that relay and fuse that I extended. That is the blue, I think, is tack, the green, I think, is fuel pump. So those are going to get mounted up here on the firewall. Time to focus on how to mount the computer. I made this little cardboard sample. I'm going to make 2 metal pieces like this, so it will mount to the computer like that. Okay, here's one bracket made. Sheet metal. So here's the brackets. Alright, the computer's mounted. I'm going to focus my efforts towards where the relays and fuses and such will be mounted. So that piece of cardboard there, I'm going to cut myself up a piece of steel. So here's my blank. Alright, that's the finished piece. Seems to fit pretty good in there, or on there. Alright, I think I got everything routed the way I want to, trying to make it look as neat as possible. And again, my goal here is to just make everything very accessible. You know, the computer there, it's very easily accessible. And then this is the panel where I'm going to mount the fuses and relays and stuff. I just don't want stuff hidden under seats, under cars, buried in the fender, any of that. Making a hole down here, so what comes out there is the wire for the heater blower motor, which is back in here, and then also for the temperature sending unit for my gauges comes out here, and then what goes in there is the connection for the handheld and for the laptop. Here's a plate for mounting my relays and fuses. So here's the wires going through the slot in the bottom here, and then I need to get these wires, and that's all that needs to go through the bottom hole. Now, something like that. Let me smooth this down. Let's see what we're looking at here. Get this guy, put it in here. It all works. The relays and the fuses will be mounted here. The wires coming down. I'd like to try to make a cover that will cover that up. So this is my cardboard pattern. Cut this out of some scrap steel, and the idea is that it would go like this. Like this. Yeah. This joint here, I'm going to tack this in place to give this some rigidity. Everything's very easily accessible. This here, we'll see how that looks. I may make a cover that just kind of comes down and does one of these numbers to tidy it up a little bit. Time to do the final wiring. So I will start with this relay here, which is basically the, I'll call it the starter relay. So what goes to here is a full 12 volts, and I turn it on and off with which would have been the old coil wire, which is the resistance wire that comes from the key. So it has power when you crank and has power when you when the car is running, which is what you need to basically fire up the computer. So that is going to be, I've already started doing that wiring. That's here. That's the red wire with the white tracer. That's direct from the computer. Then you want power to the fan, which is the yellow wire. That'll feed up under the fender. And that goes to a relay. That basically trips a relay. And I have under here, this is the relay for the fan, and then this is also the fuse for the fan here. And the other wire nothing goes to it, but I wanted a pigtail here in case I need to wire up something else that goes to that needs to have the crank trigger, so to speak. Okay, so direct power, full 12 volts, and basically switching it on and off here. Okay, so the direct power is this wire right here, and this is what comes up from the starter. Okay, then this relay here is for the fuel pump. This needs to go to battery power, the big red one. The yellow wire is what will go and connect to the computer, and that'll be the trigger wire. So that's green. That goes to this wire. And then the purple will go direct to the fuel pump. And then there's a ground, and that's the gray wire that just goes up and grounds here. And then I'm grounding this whole thing with even a separate ground wire to make sure I have a good ground that'll go to that screw right there. This is a fuse for, I'm not sure if it's the fuel pump or just the whole computer system itself. And this is a relay for the computer system itself. So I didn't do any wiring to these two items. These two are one of the 4 or 5 that I extended from the wiring harness. All the relays in place and wires routed. All my connections are back in there. That's not going to have a cover on it. These will have a cover on it, but with the hood on, that's something similar with the old computer. I mean, you really can't see it, and again, it makes everything just very accessible. I know this looks like quite the rat's nest, although it is fairly organized, believe it or not. This will be everything that goes to the positive battery terminal, and then this is everything that goes to the negative. You can see the computer is totally wired up there. The 2 main harness plugs are in. This is the power harness, and it goes to the positive and negative portion of the battery cable. The battery I bought is a dual post battery. All the computer stuff will fasten on here on the side. So relay for the fan, that is the fuse for the fan, that is the fuse for the fuel pump. And with yellow and gray wire back there, those are trip wire for the fan and power for the fan that comes from the main relay. So yeah, hopefully all this is going to work. So the wiring's pretty much done under the hood. What I haven't done yet, though, is I haven't plugged in all the sensor connectors. So I have the wires tucked in by the fuel injectors here quite tight on both sides. Power up the fuel pump, put pressure to the system, and make sure I don't have any leaks up here before it's really hard for me to see them with all these wires tucked down in. Or clean out the fuel tank. It's been 4 years since this thing's been on the road. It's got 4-year-old gas in it, so I want to drop the tank, drain it. I'm going to blow out the lines. That's what it looks like with the battery in place. As you get in closer here, you can see all the wires and stuff behind it. I don't have anything hooked up yet. When I do, I'll neaten those up a little bit, kind of zip tie some of them together. But what I like about it is just everything is easily accessible. You can see where the relay is for the fan, the fuses for the fan, and the fuel pump, and the computer's right there. Again, easily accessible. So I'm pretty happy with how this whole thing turned out.